The demonstration arena buzzed with excited chatter from dozens of alien species. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness humanity's first official military display since joining the Galactic Council. Alex Rivera adjusted the straps on her combat armor one final time, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter echoing through the viewing chambers above. Her armor looked exactly like what it was: metal plates bolted together with visible joints and hinges. No flowing energy fields, no shimmering force barriers, no nanotech integration that seemed to define modern galactic warfare. Just steel, ceramic, and good old-fashioned engineering that any human mechanic could fix with basic tools. Ambassador Caney of the Tridac Empire gestured dramatically toward Alex from his elevated platform. His voice carried easily through the arena's sound system, translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Honored delegates observed the pinnacle of human military technology. Notice the crude construction, the visible mechanical components, the complete absence of energy integration. The alien audience erupted in what could only be described as polite but condescending applause. Alex caught sight of several Vorthak officials pointing at her armor and shaking their elongated heads in what appeared to be sympathetic embarrassment. In contrast, Caney continued, "Allow me to present General Thon of our elite Phantom Corps." The arena floor shimmered, and suddenly a figure materialized seemingly from nowhere. General Thon stood 7 feet tall, his form encased in armor that appeared to be made of liquid starlight. The surface shifted and flowed like mercury, occasionally becoming completely transparent before solidifying into an opalescent shell that seemed to absorb light itself. The crowd's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. Cheers, clicks, harmonic tones, and other expressions of approval filled the arena. Alex had to admit the armor was impressive. Energy readings on her basic scanner showed power outputs that could probably run a small city. Phase shift technology, Caney explained proudly. General Thon can become incorporeal at will, immune to physical attacks. His armor automatically adapts to incoming energy signatures, neutralizing most known weapons before they can cause damage. The neural interface responds to thought at light speed. Alex nodded respectfully toward her opponent. Thon's helmet turned in her direction, though she couldn't see his face through the swirling energy field that served as a visor. "Begin combat demonstration," announced the arena's automated system. General Thon immediately vanished. Not invisible, completely gone. Alex's motion sensors showed nothing. Heat sensors detected only ambient temperature, and her electromagnetic readings were clean. For all practical purposes, she was alone in the arena. The viewing platforms fell silent except for occasional whispers of appreciation for Tridac technology. Alex stood perfectly still, her rifle held in a ready position but not actively tracking. She appeared to be doing nothing at all. Suddenly, Alex dove forward and rolled hard to her left. The spot where she had been standing erupted in sparks as a plasma bolt struck the arena floor. Still no sign of Thon, but Alex was already moving again, this time spinning and dropping to one knee while bringing her rifle around in a sweeping arc. Her first shot appeared to hit empty air. Her second shot, fired 3 feet to the left of the first, connected with something solid. General Thon materialized mid-air, his perfect armor showing a spreading crack across the chest plate where her kinetic round had punched through. The alien audience gasped collectively. Energy weapons had never penetrated phase shift armor in any previous demonstration. Thon landed gracefully and immediately began cycling through defensive protocols. His armor shifted through 7 different configurations in as many seconds: reflective surfaces, energy absorption matrices, kinetic dispersion fields. Each change was accompanied by a different harmonic tone as the armor's systems adjusted. Alex waited patiently for him to finish, then shot him in the leg. The simple kinetic round punched through whatever exotic defensive field Thon was currently employing and sent him stumbling. His armor automatically sealed the breach and began medical protocols, but Alex was already moving. She sprinted directly toward him, her heavy boots clanging against the arena floor with each step. Thon raised his weapon, a sleek energy rifle that hummed with barely contained power. Alex stumbled, seeming to trip over her own feet, and his shot passed harmlessly over her falling form. Her momentum carried her into a rolling tackle that caught Thon around the waist. The impact sent both fighters sprawling, but Alex recovered first. Thon's armor was trying to phase shift again, becoming translucent. but Alex simply grabbed what appeared to be empty air and held on. Her gloved hands found purchase on something solid despite what her eyes were telling her. Impossible, Caney muttered from his platform. She cannot maintain contact with a phase-shifted target. Alex proved him wrong by systematically dismantling General Thon's armor with her bare hands. Each piece she removed became visible again as soon as it was separated from the main system. She worked with the methodical efficiency of someone who had spent years learning how things were put together, so she could take them apart. Within minutes, General Thon stood in the center of the arena wearing only his basic undersuit, surrounded by scattered pieces of the most advanced personal armor in the galaxy. His weapon lay in pieces nearby, its power core safely removed and set aside. Alex stood and offered him a hand up, which he accepted with what appeared to be stunned gratitude. The arena remained completely silent for nearly 30 seconds. Then Ambassador Caney's voice cut through the stillness, tight with barely controlled emotion. How? Alex looked up toward the viewing platforms and shrugged. Your armor is really impressive, but it has 17 different systems that all have to work perfectly together. My armor has 3 systems. Stop things from hitting me, let me move around, and don't break when I need it most. She gestured toward the scattered Tridac technology. All that fancy gear makes you faster and stronger and nearly invisible, but it also makes you predictable. Your armor thinks for you, so once I figured out what it was thinking, fighting you was just fighting a very sophisticated computer program. General Thon removed his helmet, revealing a face that cycled through several different emotions before settling on something that looked like respect. You tracked me while I was phase-shifted, he said. Our sensors showed no possible method for detection. I listened to your footsteps, Alex replied simply. Your armor might be able to bend light and fool electromagnetic sensors, but it still weighs something and you still have to walk around. The arena floor has really good acoustics. The silence stretched even longer this time. Finally, a voice from the Helios collective delegation called out. Surely this was an anomaly. One human against one Tridac proves nothing. Alex looked directly toward the source of the voice and smiled. Want to try next? News traveled faster than light across the galactic communication networks, but rumors traveled even faster. Within days of the demonstration on the Tribunal Station, every military installation in 3 sectors was buzzing with talk of the human who had dismantled Tridac phase armor with her bare hands. Sergeant Nina Walsh had heard the stories, but she was too busy staying alive to think much about galactic politics. The mining station on Kepler 7 was under siege, and the Vorthak Confederacy had sent their best shock troops to claim the rare mineral deposits hidden in the asteroid's core. Nina crouched behind a twisted piece of mining equipment, her armor scarred and dented from 3 days of continuous fighting. The metal plates showed burn marks from energy weapons, impact craters from kinetic rounds, and long scratches where alien claws had tried to find gaps in the protection. Any reasonable person would have declared the armor combat ineffective hours ago. The Vorthak had different ideas about reasonable. 6 of their shock troopers approached her position, moving in perfect formation. Their gravity manipulation suits let them walk on walls and ceilings as easily as floors, and they used the 3-dimensional nature of the mining tunnels to their advantage. 1 trooper advanced along the floor while 2 others flanked along the side walls and 3 more took positions on the tunnel ceiling. Nina's armor had no artificial gravity generators, no magnetic clamps for alternative surfaces, and definitely no ability to defy physics. She was stuck on the floor like any normal human being, surrounded by enemies who could attack from literally any direction. The lead Vorthak trooper signaled his team with a series of hand gestures. They moved with mechanical precision, each step calculated by their suit's tactical computers to provide maximum coverage and minimum exposure. The gravity suits hummed softly as they adjusted for optimal positioning. Nina waited until they were all committed to their approach pattern, then threw a wrench at the ceiling. The simple tool struck an overhead support beam and ricocheted down toward the floor with a loud clang. All 6 Vorthak troopers immediately oriented toward the sound, their suits automatically adjusting their gravity fields to face the perceived threat. For just a moment, they were all looking in the same direction. Nina rolled out from behind her cover and opened fire. Her weapon was nothing special, a standard kinetic rifle that fired simple metal slugs at high velocity. No energy bolts, no smart ammunition, no target-seeking capabilities, just basic physics applied with precision. Her first shot took the ceiling trooper in the center of mass. The impact disrupted his gravity field and sent him tumbling toward the floor in a flailing mass of arms and legs. Her second shot caught a wall walker in the knee joint where his armor was thinnest. He lost his grip and fell sideways into his partner. The remaining 3 Vorthak responded with textbook tactical efficiency. They spread out to deny her concentrated targets and began laying down suppressing fire with their plasma weapons. The tunnel filled with superheated energy bolts that turned chunks of rock into glowing slag. Nina was already gone. She had rolled behind a different piece of equipment and was working her way around the tunnel's perimeter, using the mining machinery like stepping stones. Her armor clanged against metal surfaces and scraped against rock walls, making enough noise to wake the dead. The Vorthak tracked her by sound, adjusting their positions to maintain overlapping fields of fire. Their tactical displays showed her probable location, movement speed, and likely next position. Everything was going according to their training protocols. Nina popped up where their computers said she couldn't be and put a rifle round through the lead trooper's faceplate. The remaining 2 Vorthak finally realized they were fighting, something their training hadn't prepared them for. They abandoned their tactical formations and switched to aggressive assault mode, using their gravity suits to launch themselves directly at Nina's position from 2 different angles. Nina stepped aside and let them crash into each other. The impact of 2 armored figures, moving at combat speed, created a spectacular collision that sent both Vorthak sprawling. Their gravity suits sparked and flickered as safety systems tried to compensate for the unexpected damage. Nina walked over and methodically disabled their weapons while they were still trying to figure out which way was up. "This is Sergeant Walsh," she spoke into her communicator. "Mining Tunnel 7 is secure. Vorthak shock troops neutralized." The voice that responded carried more than a little disbelief. "Walsh, did you say neutralized? Our scanners show 6 enemy contacts in your area. Confirmed. 6 contacts all down. Requesting medical assistance for prisoners." A long pause filled the communication channel. Finally, the voice returned, carefully neutral. "Sergeant, our tactical analysis shows those troops were equipped with gravity manipulation suits. How exactly did you engage targets with 3-dimensional mobility?" Nina looked down at her battered armor, then at the groaning Vorthak troops scattered around the tunnel. "I waited for them to get cocky, sir. Turns out when you can walk on walls, you forget to watch where you're walking." 3 sectors away, Corporal Dave Kim was having his own educational experience with alien military technology. The trade station Nexus 9 had been boarded by Helios collective raiders, and Dave found himself defending the main cargo bay against enemies equipped with personal shields that could deflect starship-grade weapons. The Helios warriors moved like ghosts, their energy shields shimmering around them like heat mirages. Direct hits from plasma cannons simply dispersed harmlessly across the shield surfaces. Kinetic weapons were deflected by carefully controlled electromagnetic fields. Even explosive devices were neutralized by the shield's ability to disperse energy over their entire surface area. Dave's armor had none of these advantages. It was just metal and ceramic, designed to stop bullets and shrapnel through the simple expedient of being harder than whatever was trying to get through it. When a Helios plasma blast hit his chest plate, it left a glowing crater in the metal, but didn't penetrate to the padding underneath. The Helios warriors saw this and increased their fire rate, concentrating multiple weapons on single targets. Their tactical doctrine called for overwhelming localized defenses through sustained energy application. It was a proven strategy that had worked against every known armor system in the galaxy. Dave's armor absorbed 17 direct hits from weapons that should have vaporized him. The metal plates glowed red-hot in several places, and the ceramic backing was cracked in a dozen spots, but the armor held together. More importantly, Dave kept moving. He charged directly into the Helios formation, his superheated armor plates acting like a walking furnace. The aliens' shields were designed to deflect energy attacks, not deal with direct physical contact from something that was radiating heat like a blast furnace. When Dave grabbed the first Helios warrior in a bear hug, the alien's shield overloaded, trying to compensate for the thermal input. The second warrior tried to back away, but Dave threw his overheated helmet at him. The impact disrupted the shield matrix long enough for Dave to close the distance and disable the shield generator with his bare hands. The remaining Helios warriors retreated to regroup and reassess their tactical situation. Their combat computers had no protocols for dealing with an enemy who used his own damaged armor as a weapon. Reports began filtering through military intelligence networks across the galaxy. Human soldiers were achieving impossible survival rates against superior technology. Their primitive armor was somehow outperforming systems that represented centuries of advanced development. Dr. Yeltris of the Helios Science Collective spent sleepless nights analyzing combat footage from a dozen different engagements. The data made no sense. Human armor showed no exotic materials, no energy integration, no adaptive capabilities. By every logical measure, it should have been completely inadequate for modern warfare. Yet humans kept winning. The pattern was always the same. Aliens would engage with sophisticated tactics designed to exploit their technological advantages. Humans would respond with approaches that seemed to ignore their own technological limitations entirely. The result was consistent. Alien forces retreating or surrendering while human casualties remained mysteriously low. There has to be something we're missing, Dr. Yeltris muttered to his research team. No armor this primitive should be this effective. His assistant, a young researcher named Veltian, pulled up another combat recording. Perhaps the armor itself is not the key factor. What do you mean? Look at the humans inside the armor. They never fight the way our tactical computers predict. They use their equipment in ways that our models cannot account for. Dr. Yeltris studied the footage more carefully. The humans did seem to treat their armor differently than other species treated their equipment. Instead of relying on automated systems and computer assistance, they appeared to be making constant manual adjustments and adaptations. Impossible, he said finally. No biological entity can process tactical information faster than a quantum combat computer. Veltian highlighted a section of the recording where a human soldier was spinning his rifle around like a club, using it to deflect energy bolts while simultaneously using his armor's weight to knock down an opponent. Perhaps, he suggested quietly, they are not trying to process information faster. Perhaps they are processing different information entirely. The Vorthak Military Research Facility on Proxima Station represented the pinnacle of reverse engineering capability in the galaxy. Commander Vextal had personally overseen the analysis of captured technology from 17 different species, successfully replicating and improving upon each design within months of acquisition. Human armor was proving to be his first complete failure. Run the composition analysis again, he ordered his engineering team for the fourth time that week. The results came back, identical to every previous scan. Steel alloy plates, ceramic trauma padding, synthetic fabric webbing, and mechanical joint systems that belonged in a museum of primitive technology. Nothing exotic, nothing that should provide superior battlefield performance, nothing that explained why human soldiers kept defeating opponents equipped with demonstrably superior equipment. Lieutenant Korval pulled up the latest test results on the main display. Sir, we have manufactured exact replicas of the human armor, using identical materials and construction techniques. When tested against our standard weapons, the armor performs within expected parameters for primitive protective gear, which means it stops basic projectiles and provides minimal protection against energy weapons. A single plasma rifle shot will penetrate the chest plate and disable the wearer. Vextal studied the data with growing frustration. His team had captured 3 complete sets of human armor during raids on contested systems. Each set had been analyzed down to the molecular level, X-rayed, scanned with every sensor in their arsenal, and subjected to every test they could devise. The armor was exactly what it appeared to be, simple, crude, and inadequate for modern warfare. Yet these same armor designs allowed human forces to defeat our shock troops on Kepler-7, Vextal said. Our gravity suits represent 50 years of advanced development. How does primitive steel defeat gravity manipulation? Engineer Nexthar spoke up from his workstation. Sir, I have been reviewing the combat recordings from that engagement. The human soldier appeared to ignore our tactical advantages entirely. Instead of trying to counter our mobility, she used it against us. Explain. Our troops approached using standard 3-dimensional assault formation. The human waited until they were committed to their positions, then created a simple audio distraction. When our soldiers oriented toward the sound, they were momentarily aligned in the same plane, negating their positional advantages. Vextal's frustration deepened. You are suggesting that superior technology was defeated by throwing a piece of metal. The metal was merely the delivery method for the tactical concept. The human recognized that our gravity suits, while providing mobility advantages, also created predictable movement patterns. She exploited this predictability. The commander stared at the armor samples displayed around the laboratory. Dozens of alien species had faced human forces in the past months, and the results were consistently baffling. Superior technology, advanced tactics, and numerical advantages meant nothing when facing humans in their ridiculous metal suits. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Yelmtar, "we have successfully captured a human soldier during our raid on the freight convoy at Tau Ceti. The prisoner is being held in Detention Bay 3. Vextal immediately headed for the detention area, followed by his engineering team. If they could not understand the armor, perhaps they could understand the soldier wearing it. Sergeant Paul Chen sat calmly in the center of the detention cell, still wearing his damaged armor. The metal plates showed evidence of the firefight that had led to his capture: plasma burns, impact craters, and long scratches where alien claws had tested for weak points. Despite the damage, Chen appeared completely relaxed. "Sergeant Chen," Vextal began, activating the universal translator. "I am Commander Vextal of the Vorthak Confederacy. I would like to discuss your equipment." Paul looked up with genuine interest. "Sure thing, Commander. What would you like to know?" The casual response caught Vextal off guard. Most prisoners were either defiant or terrified when first interrogated. Chen seemed genuinely willing to have a conversation. "Your armor appears to be constructed using primitive materials and outdated design principles, yet it has proven remarkably effective against advanced defensive systems. How do you explain this contradiction?" Paul glanced down at his scarred chestplate and chuckled. "You think this armor is what makes us effective? Our analysis indicates that human battlefield success correlates directly with the use of this armor design. Without it, your soldiers would be completely vulnerable to modern weapons. Commander, with respect, I think you're looking at this backwards. The armor doesn't make us effective. We make the armor effective." Vextal exchanged glances with his engineering team. "Please elaborate." Paul stood and gestured to his equipment. "This armor has exactly 3 jobs. First, stop things from killing me immediately. Second, let me move around without falling apart. Third, keep working when everything goes wrong. That is hardly revolutionary design philosophy. No, but it's honest design philosophy. Your gravity suits are amazing pieces of technology, but they're designed to make you superhuman. My armor is designed to keep me human while other people are trying to kill me." Lieutenant Korval stepped forward. "You admit that our technology is superior. How then do you consistently defeat forces equipped with gravity manipulation, energy shields, and quantum processors? Because all that fancy gear makes you think like the gear instead of thinking like a soldier. When you have gravity suits, you think in 3 dimensions and complex movement patterns. When you have energy shields, you think in terms of absorption rates and deflection angles. When you have quantum processors, you think in terms of calculated probabilities." Paul tapped his dented helmet. "When I have a steel hat and a rifle, I think about how to win a fight." The aliens looked confused. Engineer Nexthar spoke first. "But surely your tactical planning must take into account the technological capabilities of both forces." "Of course it does. I know your gravity suits let you walk on walls, so I wait until you're all walking in the same direction, and then I do something you're not expecting. I know your energy shields deflect most weapons, so I find ways to get close enough that deflection doesn't matter. I know your computers can calculate probabilities faster than I can think, so I do things that don't make sense to calculate." Vextal felt like he was missing something fundamental. "You are describing tactical improvisation, not technological superiority." "Exactly. Your technology is designed to give you advantages in a fair fight. My armor is designed to keep me alive in an unfair fight. Big difference. I fail to see the distinction." Paul sat back down, his armor clanking against the metal bench. "Commander, when you put on your gravity suit, what do you think about? Tactical positioning, movement optimization, gravitational vector calculations. When I put on my armor, I think about going home to see my family. Your gear makes you better at being a gravity suit operator. My gear lets me be better at being a human being who happens to be in a fight." The interrogation continued for several hours, but the fundamental disconnect remained. The Vorthak team could analyze every component of human armor, replicate its construction perfectly, and test its capabilities exhaustively. What they could not replicate was the mindset of the soldiers wearing it. Later, as Vextal reviewed the interrogation recordings, Engineer Nexthar approached with a troubling observation. Sir, I have been thinking about Sergeant Chen's comments regarding tactical improvisation. Our own combat doctrine emphasizes technological advantages and calculated responses. What if this predictability is itself a vulnerability? Explain. If our tactics are optimized for our technology, and our technology follows logical patterns, then our entire approach to warfare becomes predictable to an opponent who is not bound by the same technological constraints. Vextal stared at the recording of Paul Chen sitting calmly in his battered armor, explaining the philosophy of human warfare with the patience of a teacher instructing slow students. You are suggesting that technological superiority has made us tactically inferior? I am suggesting that we have been fighting the armor instead of the humans wearing it. And if Sergeant Chen is correct, the armor was never the real weapon. Vextal ordered additional testing with their human armor replicas, this time focusing on tactical flexibility rather than technological performance. The results were disturbing. When Vorthak soldiers tried to use human equipment in the same ways they used their own gear, they failed completely. The armor provided no automated assistance, no enhanced capabilities, no technological advantages whatsoever. But when they tried to think like Sergeant Chen had described, focusing on winning fights rather than optimizing equipment performance, something interesting happened. The primitive armor suddenly became much more effective, not because it was better, but because the soldiers wearing it started making different decisions. The implications were staggering. The entire Vorthak military doctrine was built around technological superiority and calculated tactical responses. If humans could defeat this approach with simple armor and improvised tactics, then every assumption about modern warfare needed to be reconsidered. Vextal spent the night staring at intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Human forces were winning engagements against opponents with superior technology, better training, and tactical advantages. The pattern was consistent across dozens of species and hundreds of combat encounters. The most primitive armor in the galaxy was somehow becoming the most effective, and Vextal was beginning to understand why. The armor itself was irrelevant. What mattered was the mind inside it, and human minds apparently worked very differently from everyone else's. The question was whether the Vorthak Confederacy could learn to think like humans before the humans finished teaching the galaxy that technological superiority meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. The contested planet Tau Ceti Prime had become a testing ground for military theories across the galaxy. Every major power had forces engaged on the surface, each trying to prove their technological superiority through combat results. The mountainous terrain provided perfect conditions for observing different tactical approaches in action. Lieutenant Sarah Kim crouched behind a boulder outcropping, studying the Helios warrior positions through her basic optical scope. No thermal imaging, no electromagnetic scanning, no quantum target acquisition, just magnified visible light and her own judgment. The enemy force had established defensive positions on the high ground, exactly where any competent military commander would expect them to be. 12 Helios warriors in advanced exoskeletons held the ridgeline above her position. Their suits provided enhanced strength, speed, and coordination through direct neural interface. Each warrior could lift 3 times their body weight, run at 40 kilometers per hour across rough terrain, and coordinate movements with their teammates through thought-speed communication. Sarah's 5-person squad wore their usual collection of dented metal plates and ceramic padding. None of them could run faster than a normal human, lift more than their natural strength allowed, or communicate faster than speech. By every measure of battlefield capability, they were completely outmatched. The Helios Force Commander, designated Warrior Prime through the Universal Translator, had announced his intentions through loudspeaker. Human forces, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic warfare conventions. Sarah keyed her radio to respond. Thanks for the offer, but we're good down here. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat a superior force equipped with advanced combat systems. Well, let's find out. What happened next was being recorded by automated observation drones from 6 different species. Military analysts across the galaxy would study the footage for years, trying to understand how 5 humans in primitive armor had systematically dismantled a technologically superior force through methods that defied Conventional tactical doctrine, Sarah, began by doing something that no military computer would ever recommend. She stood up in plain sight of the enemy positions and waved. The Helios warriors immediately targeted her with their enhanced weapon systems. Neural interfaces calculated optimal firing solutions while computer-assisted targeting locked onto her heat signature. 12 advanced rifles trained on her position with mechanical precision. Sarah dove behind her boulder just as the rocks around her exploded into superheated fragments. The Helios force had fired simultaneously, concentrating their fire on her last known position with overwhelming force. It was a textbook response to an exposed target. Unfortunately for the Helios warriors, Sarah was no longer where their computers thought she should be. She had rolled sideways during her dive and was now 30 feet away from the impact zone, hidden behind a different piece of cover entirely. Corporal Mike Torres had been watching the enemy positions while Sarah drew their attention. When 12 rifles fired at once, he spotted the muzzle flashes and immediately began plotting movement routes up the mountainside. No computer assistance, no tactical overlay, just basic fieldcraft and experience. "Boss," he whispered into his radio. "They're bunched up on the left side of the ridge. Looks like they're using standard Overwatch formation." Sarah checked her own tactical display, which consisted of a paper map and a compass. "Copy that. Can you get around behind them? Give me 10 minutes and another distraction." Private Lisa Chang had been assembling something that looked like a scarecrow from spare equipment and uniform pieces. When she finished, the crude decoy bore a vague resemblance to a human soldier from a distance. She attached it to a telescoping antenna and raised it slowly above their defensive position. The Helios warriors' targeting systems immediately identified the new threat and engaged with coordinated fire. The decoy exploded in a shower of fabric and metal fragments while the real human squad moved to new positions under cover of the distraction. Warrior Prime watched his forces respond with satisfaction. Human deception tactics were primitive but occasionally effective. His soldiers had correctly identified and neutralized the threat with minimal ammunition expenditure. The neural interface displayed tactical analysis showing probable human positions and recommended engagement strategies. What the analysis could not account for was Sergeant Pete Williams, who had been crawling through a drainage ditch for the past 15 minutes. His armor scraped against rocks and splashed through muddy water, making enough noise to wake the dead. Any competent sensor array should have detected him easily. The problem was that the Helios warriors' enhanced hearing was digitally filtered to focus on specific threat signatures. Their suits automatically eliminated background noise to prevent sensory overload. The sound of armor scraping against stone was classified as environmental noise and filtered out by their audio processing systems. Pete reached the base of the ridge and began climbing straight up the cliff face. His armor had no climbing aids, no magnetic grips, no gravity assistance. He climbed the old-fashioned way using handholds and footholds that his unenhanced human eyes spotted in the rock face. The Helios exoskeletons were marvels of engineering, but they were designed for enhanced performance on relatively flat terrain. The suit's balance systems and movement algorithms were optimized for rapid deployment across open ground, not vertical climbing on irregular surfaces. Mike Torres flanked around the right side of the ridge, moving through terrain that the Helios tactical computers had classified as impassable. The rocky slope was too steep for safe exoskeleton operation and offered no clear movement corridors for mechanically enhanced troops. Mike ignored the terrain analysis and picked his way through the rocks like any human who had ever gone hiking. His armor banged against stone surfaces and caught on thorny plants, but it also protected him from scrapes and cuts that would have slowed him down. Within 10 minutes, he was above and behind the Helios positions. Sarah waited until both her flanking elements were in position, then initiated the final phase of her attack. She stood up again, this time staying in full view of the enemy positions while slowly walking toward the base of the ridge. The Helios warriors were baffled. Their tactical computers could find no logical explanation for such behavior. Walking directly toward a superior force in open ground violated every principle of military science. Warrior Prime opened a communication channel to verify that the humans had not malfunctioned. "Human Commander, are you attempting to surrender?" "Nope," Sarah replied cheerfully, continuing her steady advance. "Just coming to talk. You are moving into our engagement zone. We will be forced to fire upon you. That's fine. Go ahead and shoot." The Helios warriors fired everything they had at the lone human walking toward them. Enhanced targeting systems calculated her movement path and delivered concentrated fire at her projected position. The ground around Sarah erupted in explosions and energy discharges that should have vaporized anything within 50 meters. Sarah kept walking. Her armor absorbed what it could and deflected what it couldn't, but she was taking damage with every step. Metal plates glowed red-hot from energy weapons, ceramic backing cracked from kinetic impacts, and her uniform showed dozens of small tears where fragments had found gaps in her protection. But she kept walking, and that simple act broke something fundamental in the Helios tactical doctrine. Pete Williams reached the top of the cliff behind the enemy, positions just as their attention was completely focused on the seemingly suicidal human approaching from the front. He found 12 Helios warriors standing in perfect formation, their backs turned toward him while they concentrated, overwhelming firepower on a single target. Pete walked up behind the nearest warrior and tapped him on the shoulder. The Helios exoskeleton spun around with enhanced reflexes, bringing its weapon to bear on the new threat. Pete grabbed the rifle barrel and bent it into a pretzel shape with his armored hands. The warrior tried to activate his suit's enhanced strength systems, but Pete had already moved on to the next target. Mike Torres opened fire from his flanking position, targeting the Helios warriors' external equipment rather than their armor. Communication antennas, sensor arrays, and weapon targeting systems began exploding under precise rifle fire. The enhanced soldiers found themselves isolated from their command network and struggling with degraded equipment performance. Sarah reached the base of the ridge and began climbing straight up toward the enemy positions. The Helios warriors were caught between three different threats: a frontal assault, flanking fire, and close combat in their rear area. Their tactical computers tried to process the multiple threat vectors, but kept arriving at the same conclusion. The current situation was impossible according to established combat doctrine. The engagement ended when Warrior Prime found himself sitting on the ground with his exoskeleton completely disabled, and Pete Williams standing over him with a friendly smile. "How?" Warrior Prime asked through his helmet speakers. "How what?" Pete replied. "Your armor provides no enhanced capabilities. Your weapons are primitive kinetic projectiles. Your tactical coordination relies on verbal communication. How did you defeat superior technology?" Pete looked down at his battered armor, then back at the Helios warrior. "Your gear is really impressive, but it all works the same way every time. Enhanced strength always responds to the same input patterns. Neural interfaces always process information using the same algorithms. Computer-assisted targeting always aims for the same optimal points." He gestured toward Sarah, who was helping Mike secure the other captured warriors. "We fight differently every time because every fight is different. Your computers can calculate what we should do, but they can't calculate what we actually will do." Warrior Prime struggled to understand. "But without technological enhancement, how do you coordinate complex tactical maneuvers?" "We've been working together for 2 years. Sarah tells us what she wants to accomplish, and we figure out how to make it happen. No computers, no neural links, just people who know each other talking about how to solve problems." The observation drones recorded every detail of the engagement, transmitting data to military analysis centers across the galaxy. The footage showed 5 humans in primitive armor, defeating 12 technologically enhanced warriors through tactics that appeared to violate fundamental principles of modern warfare. Dr. Yeltris of the Helios Science Collective reviewed the combat data with growing amazement. They treated their technological disadvantages as tactical advantages, he told his research team. Instead of trying to compete with our enhanced capabilities, they exploited the predictable responses those capabilities create. His assistant pulled up detailed analysis of the human movement patterns. "Look at their coordination methods. No computer networking, no automated battlefield management, no algorithmic tactical optimization. They communicated through voice radio and hand signals, making decisions in real time based on immediate observations. Primitive communication methods should create coordination delays and tactical errors." Should, yes. But observe their actual performance. Each human soldier adapted their individual actions to support the overall tactical objective, without requiring centralized control or computer assistance. They demonstrated intuitive understanding of each other's capabilities and limitations. Dr. Yeltris studied the footage of Sarah Kim walking calmly toward overwhelming enemy fire, her armor absorbing punishment that should have stopped any rational assault. She used herself as bait, knowing that our targeting systems would focus on the most obvious threat, while her teammates maneuvered into flanking positions. More than that, she used our technological superiority against us. Our enhanced targeting systems achieved perfect accuracy against her projected position, but she was never where our computers predicted she would be. The implications were becoming clear to military analysts across the galaxy. Human warfare was not about technological capability, it was about cognitive flexibility. Their primitive armor served not as protection, but as a platform for tactical creativity that sophisticated equipment could not match. The humans had turned the galaxy's greatest strength into its greatest weakness, and they had done it with metal plates and common sense. The neutral station Harmony Point had hosted diplomatic conferences for over 3 centuries, but never one quite like this. Representatives from every major galactic power sat around a circular table designed to ensure no species had positional advantage over any other. Today, however, all attention focused on the human delegation and the man who had requested this unprecedented gathering. Admiral Marcus Stone looked remarkably ordinary compared to the exotic aliens surrounding him. No enhanced physical features, no technological augmentations, no energy fields or exotic materials. He wore a simple dress uniform that could have been manufactured on any industrial world in the galaxy. Even his rank insignia were just metal pins attached with basic clasps. Ambassador Caney of the Tridac Empire leaned forward in his ornate chair. Admiral Stone, you have called this conference to discuss human military doctrine. Given recent battlefield results, we are curious about your methods, Stone nodded respectfully. Thank you all for coming. I know this situation has created confusion across the galaxy, and I think it's time we address that directly. Commander Vextal of the Vorthak Confederacy activated his translation matrix. Our analysis indicates that human armor technology should be completely inadequate for modern warfare. Yet your forces continue to achieve victory against superior equipment. We require explanation. I'll be happy to explain, Stone replied. But first I'd like to show you something. He gestured to his aide, who wheeled in a standard human armor display rack. The assembled aliens had seen captured human equipment before, but this was the first time they had been invited to examine it openly. Several delegates leaned forward with obvious interest. This is Mark 7th Human Infantry Armor, Stone began, running his hand along the metal plates. Steel alloy construction, ceramic trauma padding, synthetic fabric integration, mechanical joint systems. Total manufacturing cost is roughly equivalent to a single targeting sensor from most of your advanced combat suits. Dr. Yeltris of the Helios Science Collective pulled out his scanner and began taking readings. Admiral, our previous analysis indicates this armor provides minimal protection against energy weapons and limited mobility enhancement. How do you explain its battlefield effectiveness? Stone smiled. Dr. Yeltris, you're asking the wrong question. You want to know how this armor is effective. The real question is why we designed it to be effective in ways your analysis can't measure. He lifted the helmet from the display rack and turned it slowly, showing the assembly to the gathered delegates. This helmet weighs 8 kilograms. Most of your combat headgear weighs less than 2 kilograms and provides superior protection. Why do you think we make ours so heavy? The aliens exchanged glances. Ambassador Caney spoke first. Inferior manufacturing techniques? Deliberate design choice. A heavy helmet makes you conscious of your head position at all times. You become aware of balance, momentum, and spatial orientation in ways that lightweight gear doesn't teach you. When someone shoots at you, you don't rely on automated systems to protect you. You move your head. Stone replaced the helmet and picked up a gauntlet. These gloves have no haptic feedback, no strength enhancement, no tool integration. They're just armored gloves. But they let you feel everything you touch: texture, temperature, weight, resistance. When you grab an enemy weapon, you know immediately how it works because your hands can tell the difference between a power cell and a trigger. Mechanism. Commander Vextal's frustration was evident, even through the universal translator. Admiral, you are describing technological limitations as advantages. This contradicts all established military science. Does it? Let me ask you something, Commander. When you put on your gravity manipulation suit, what happens to your tactical thinking? The suit provides enhanced mobility options and three-dimensional battlefield awareness. Exactly. Your tactics become optimized for gravity manipulation. You think about movement in terms of what your suit can do, rather than what the situation requires. Your equipment defines your response. Stone walked around the armor display, letting his words sink in. When a human soldier puts on this armor, what does he think about? Presumably the armor's protective capabilities, offered Dr. Yeltris. He thinks about going home alive. The armor doesn't tell him how to fight. It just keeps him breathing long enough to figure it out for himself. General Mora of the Hegemony Defense Corps, a massive insectoid being, clicked her mandibles in what served as their equivalent of laughter. Admiral, you cannot seriously suggest that technological limitation improves combat effectiveness. I'm suggesting that technological dependence limits combat effectiveness. General, how long can your soldiers fight if their equipment fails? Equipment failure is statistically negligible in modern combat systems. That's not what I asked. How long can they fight without their equipment? The silence stretched uncomfortable around the conference table. Stone continued his explanation, while the aliens processed the implications. Human armor is designed around three principles. First, it must protect the soldier without protecting him from consequences. Pain teaches better lessons than computer warnings. Second, it must function reliably under the worst possible conditions. Third, it must never make decisions for the soldier wearing it. He gestured toward the assembled delegates. Your equipment is designed to make soldiers more effective by enhancing their capabilities. Our equipment is designed to keep soldiers effective by not interfering with their judgment. Ambassador Caney leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. You are suggesting that superior technology makes soldiers inferior? I'm suggesting that soldiers who depend on technology for tactical thinking lose the ability to think tactically when that technology fails or encounters unexpected situations. Stone activated a holographic display, showing combat footage from recent engagements. Watch this recording from the Tau Ceti engagement. Notice how my soldiers move. The footage showed Sarah Kim's squad maneuvering against Helios forces. The aliens watched with new understanding as the humans adapted their tactics in real time, responding to changing conditions without computer assistance or automated coordination. Your forces used established tactical doctrine optimized for their equipment capabilities, Stone explained. My soldiers used whatever worked. When standard approaches failed, they tried something else. When that failed, they tried something completely different. Dr. Yeltris studied the tactical display with growing comprehension. Your soldiers demonstrated cognitive flexibility that our computer-assisted forces could not match. More than that, they demonstrated tactical creativity that computer assistance actually prevents. When you rely on quantum processors to calculate optimal responses, you stop developing the ability to imagine unexpected solutions. Commander Vextal spoke slowly, as if working through a difficult concept. You deliberately limit your soldiers' technological capabilities to force them to develop biological capabilities. We limit their technological dependencies to preserve their ability to think independently. There's a difference. Stone changed the display to show human training exercises. Watch how we prepare soldiers for combat. No computer simulations, no virtual reality, no automated instruction. Human instructors teaching human students through practical experience. The footage showed soldiers learning to use their equipment through repetitive practice, making mistakes, receiving correction, and gradually developing competence through trial and error. It looked primitively inefficient compared to the sophisticated training programs used by advanced civilizations. Why do you reject automated training methods? Asked General Mora. Computer instruction is faster and more precise than biological teaching. Computer instruction teaches soldiers to respond like computers. Human instruction teaches soldiers to respond like humans. In combat, human responses are more effective because they're unpredictable. Stone highlighted a section of the training footage where soldiers were practicing equipment repair. Look at this. We teach every soldier to maintain and repair their equipment using basic tools and improvised materials. Why do you think that is? Logistical efficiency? Suggested Dr. Yeltris. Tactical independence. A soldier who understands how his equipment works can adapt it for purposes it wasn't designed for. A soldier who relies on automated maintenance never learns to see equipment as modifiable tools. The conference continued for hours, as Stone systematically explained human military philosophy. The aliens began to understand that human effectiveness came not from superior technology, but from a deliberate rejection of technological dependence. You trained soldiers to be resourceful rather than efficient, observed Ambassador Caney. You prioritize adaptability over optimization. We prioritize humans over hardware. Equipment serves the soldier, not the other way around. Commander Vextal pulled up tactical analysis from dozens of recent engagements. Admiral, your approach appears to violate fundamental principles of modern military science. How do you justify such inefficient methods? Stone looked directly at the Vorthak commander. Commander, how many battles have your forces won against human opponents? The silence that followed answered the question more clearly than words could have. Efficiency is only valuable if you're efficient at the right things, Stone continued. Your forces are extremely efficient at using technology to solve tactical problems. My forces are extremely efficient at solving tactical problems with whatever happens to be available. Dr. Yeltris set down his scanner and looked thoughtfully at the human armor display. Admiral, you have presented a convincing argument for technological limitation as a tactical advantage. However, this raises a disturbing question, which is, if human methods are superior, what does this suggest about the military doctrine of every other species in the galaxy? Stone's expression became serious. Dr. Yeltris, I'm not here to argue that human methods are superior. I'm here to suggest that overdependence on any single approach, technological or otherwise, creates vulnerabilities that can be exploited. He gestured around the conference table. Every species here has developed military doctrine based on their greatest strengths. Tridac phase shifting, Vorthak gravity manipulation, Helios neural enhancement. These are incredible capabilities that provide enormous advantages in most situations. But, prompted Ambassador Caney, but when you build everything around your greatest strength, you create a single point of failure. Humans developed our approach because we don't have any overwhelming technological advantages. We had to learn to fight effectively without superior equipment. General Mora's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You suggest that technological superiority has made us tactically vulnerable? I suggest that any doctrine built around specific technological capabilities becomes predictable to opponents, who aren't bound by the same limitations. The implications hung heavy in the conference room air. Every major military power in the galaxy had based their entire approach to warfare on technological superiority. The idea that this strength could be turned into a weakness challenged fundamental assumptions about military science. Stone concluded his presentation with a simple observation that would reshape galactic military thinking for generations to come. The most stupid armor in the galaxy keeps winning because the soldiers wearing it never stop learning how to fight. 6 months after the conference at Harmony Point, the joint training facility on Haven looked like something from a fever dream. Tridac warriors struggled through obstacle courses wearing simplified armor that weighed 3 times more than their usual gear. Vorthak soldiers practiced basic rifle maintenance without the aid of automated repair systems. Helios troops learned hand-to-hand combat techniques that their neural interfaces kept insisting were suboptimal. Captain Emma Rodriguez watched the controlled chaos from the observation deck, sipping coffee from a metal cup that had been manufactured in the same factory as her armor plates. The irony wasn't lost on her. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were paying humans to teach them how to be primitive. Captain Rodriguez called Commander Yelthar of the Tridac Empire, climbing the stairs to join her. His breathing was labored, a side effect of wearing human-style training armor that provided no respiratory assistance. I must speak with you about today's exercises. Emma gestured to a simple metal chair. No automated adjustment, no comfort optimization, no environmental controls. Just a place to sit. What's on your mind, Commander? Yelthar settled into the chair with obvious discomfort. My warriors are struggling with the concept of equipment failure recovery. When their phase shift generators malfunction, they appear to panic. What do they do when the equipment works normally? They rely on tactical protocols optimized for phase shift capabilities. Movement patterns, engagement ranges, timing sequences. Everything is calculated based on the assumption that invisibility is available. Emma nodded. And when that assumption turns out to be wrong? They have no backup doctrine. The phase shift technology has been so reliable that we never developed contingency procedures. Commander, show me your sidearm. Yelthar drew his standard-issue Tridac pistol, a sleek device that hummed with barely contained energy, plasma discharge weapon, auto-targeting capability, ammunition synthesized from atmospheric particles. It never requires reloading and rarely malfunctions. What happens if it does malfunction? The weapon has built-in diagnostic and repair functions. Malfunctions are automatically corrected within seconds. Emma drew her own sidearm, a chunky metal device that looked crude compared to the alien weapon. This is a ballistic pistol. Fires metal projectiles using chemical propellant. Holds 15 rounds, after which I have to manually reload. No auto-targeting, no self-repair. Malfunctions regularly in adverse conditions. Yelthar examined the human weapon with puzzlement. Why do you use such primitive equipment when superior alternatives exist? Because this weapon teaches me things your weapon doesn't. I have to aim manually so I know how to hit targets under any conditions. I have to reload regularly, so I'm always conscious of ammunition expenditure. It breaks down frequently, so I know exactly how it works and how to fix it. Emma demonstrated field stripping the pistol, reducing it to component parts in less than 30 seconds. I can repair this weapon with basic tools under combat conditions. Can you repair your plasma pistol if the auto-diagnostic fails? The question hung in the air while Yelthar processed the implications. His weapon was vastly superior in every measurable way, but it also represented a single point of failure that could disable him completely if anything went wrong. You are suggesting that inferior equipment provides superior preparation for equipment failure? I'm suggesting that equipment designed to fail safely teaches you to succeed when things go wrong. Their conversation was interrupted by shouting from the training yard below. Sergeant Lisa Park was conducting an equipment maintenance class for a mixed group of alien soldiers, and the lesson was not going well. No, 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 Lisa called out to a Helios warrior who was trying to reassemble his rifle. Don't just force the pieces together. Feel how they fit. The metal will tell you if you're doing it wrong. The warrior's neural interface kept providing technical readouts and assembly instructions, but the information was based on Helios technology, rather than the simplified human weapons they were using for training. His enhanced cognitive processing was actually interfering with the basic manual skills he needed to complete the task. Sergeant Park, the warrior called out in frustration, my interface indicates optimal assembly procedures, but the components do not respond as expected. Lisa walked over and gently removed the warrior's helmet, temporarily disconnecting him from his technological support systems. Try it now. Use your hands instead of your computer. Without digital assistance, the warrior had to rely on tactile feedback and visual observation. It took him several minutes to complete an assembly that his interface could have guided him through in seconds. But when he finished, his expression showed something like wonder. I felt the mechanism engage, he said quietly. The metal surfaces aligned and the components locked together with physical certainty. Right. Your computer can tell you when something is assembled correctly, but your hands can tell you why it works. Emma and Yelthar watched the scene with different perspectives. The Tridac commander saw primitive teaching methods that seemed wastefully inefficient. Emma saw the beginning of tactical independence. Captain, Yelthar said slowly, I am beginning to understand why human forces achieved such surprising results against our technology. You are not fighting our equipment, you are fighting our dependence on our equipment. Partly, yes, but it goes deeper than that. Explain. Emma pointed to another training group where Vorthak soldiers were practicing basic movement without their gravity suits. They stumbled frequently, unused to working within the constraints of natural physics, but they were gradually developing an understanding of balance and momentum that their technology had always provided for them. Watch how they move now compared to how they moved when they arrived. They're slower, less efficient, more clumsy, but they're also more adaptive. When they encounter unexpected obstacles, they figure out how to overcome them instead of waiting for their suits to calculate solutions. This appears to contradict the fundamental goal of military technology, to enhance soldier capabilities. It depends what you mean by enhancement. Your technology makes soldiers more capable of doing specific things very well. Our approach makes soldiers more capable of doing unexpected things adequately. Yelthar studied the training exercises with new understanding. In warfare, unexpected things happen frequently. In warfare, unexpected things are the norm. Technology that optimizes for expected scenarios becomes a liability when scenarios become unexpected. Dr. Yeltris of the Helios Science Collective approached their position, moving awkwardly in training armor that provided no mechanical assistance. His usual elegant grace was replaced by the careful movements of someone learning to trust his own physical capabilities. Captain Rodriguez, Dr. Yeltris, Emma acknowledged. How are the cognitive adaptation exercises progressing? Slowly, Yeltris admitted. My research team is experiencing significant difficulty adjusting to non-enhanced decision-making processes. When neural interfaces are disabled, response times increase by an average of 300%. But are the responses better or worse? That is, difficult to quantify. Slower responses often demonstrate greater creativity and tactical flexibility. Enhanced responses are faster but more predictable. Emma smiled. Doctor, you've just identified the core principle of human military doctrine, which is, better is more important than faster. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of General Mora, whose imposing insectoid form looked strange in simplified human-style armor. Her natural chitinous exoskeleton provided excellent protection, but the training protocol required all participants to experience the limitations and advantages of basic human equipment. Captain Rodriguez. Mora clicked in greeting. I must report concerning developments in today's exercises. What kind of developments? My soldiers have begun modifying their equipment without authorization. They are creating improvised solutions to tactical problems that were not part of the original training scenario. Emma exchanged glances with Yelthar and Dr. Yeltris. What kind of modifications? Crude but effective adaptations. Weapon mounting systems created from spare armor parts. Communication devices fashioned from salvaged components. Tactical tools improvised from available materials. General, that's exactly what we hoped would happen. Mora's mandibles clicked in confusion. Unauthorized equipment modification violates standard military protocols. Human protocols encourage equipment modification. We call it field expedience, adapting available resources to meet immediate tactical requirements, but this reduces standardization and creates unpredictable equipment performance. It also creates soldiers who can fight effectively with whatever happens to be available. General, what happens when your soldiers encounter situations their standard equipment wasn't designed for? Standard protocol requires requesting appropriate equipment through logistics channels. And if that equipment isn't available, alternative protocols specify withdrawal to positions where standard equipment effectiveness can be restored. Emma let that sink in before responding. General, human soldiers don't have that option. When we encounter situations our equipment wasn't designed for, we make the equipment work anyway. The implications of that simple statement rippled through the gathered alien officers. Their entire approach to warfare was built around having the right tool for every job. The human approach was built around making any tool work for any job. 3 hours later, Emma stood in the facility's main briefing room, addressing a mixed audience of alien military officers who had completed their first week of human-style training. The transformation was already visible. They moved differently, thought differently, and most importantly, they solved problems differently. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, you came here to learn why human armor keeps winning battles. I hope this week has provided some answers. Commander Vextal raised his hand. Captain, our forces have achieved measurable improvements in tactical flexibility and equipment independence. However, we have also experienced decreased efficiency in standard operations. Commander, you're thinking about this backwards. Efficiency optimized for standard operations becomes inefficiency when operations become non-standard. But surely optimal performance requires standardized procedures. Optimal performance requires the ability to recognize when standardized procedures don't apply, and the flexibility to develop new approaches on the spot. Dr. Yeltris spoke up from the back of the room. Captain, you are describing a fundamental shift in military philosophy. Instead of preparing soldiers for known scenarios, you prepare them for unknown scenarios. Doctor, every battle involves unknown scenarios. The enemy gets a vote in how things go, and enemies rarely cooperate with your battle plans. Ambassador Caney, who had been observing the training exercises throughout the week, stood to address the group. Captain Rodriguez, the Tridac Empire has based our military doctrine on technological superiority for over 2 centuries. Are you suggesting that this entire approach is flawed? Emma considered her response carefully. Ambassador, I'm suggesting that any approach becomes flawed when it becomes the only approach. Your technology is incredible and provides enormous advantages. The problem comes when you start thinking of those advantages as requirements instead of tools. Explain the distinction. When phase shifting becomes a requirement for your tactical doctrine, you become helpless when phase shifting isn't available. When phase shifting is just one tool among many, you remain effective even when that particular tool fails. General Mora clicked her approval. The human approach develops tactical resilience rather than tactical optimization. Exactly. We optimize for the ability to remain effective under the worst possible conditions, rather than maximizing effectiveness under ideal conditions. The briefing continued for another hour, but the fundamental message was clear. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were learning that their greatest strength, technological superiority, had become a critical weakness when facing opponents who didn't share their technological dependencies. As the session ended and the alien officers dispersed to continue their training, Emma reflected on the strange turn of events that had brought them all together. 6 months ago, the galaxy had mocked human armor as primitive and ineffective. Now representatives from every major power were paying to learn human military philosophy. The most stupid armor in the galaxy had taught the galaxy's smartest species an important lesson. The warrior matters more than the weapon, and the most sophisticated technology is worthless without the wisdom to use it properly. Looking out at the training yard where Tridac warriors were learning to fight without phase shifting, Fourthac soldiers were mastering gravity-free movement, and Helios troops were discovering that their own judgment could be more reliable than computer assistance, Emma realized that humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than advanced technology. They had given them the reminder that intelligence, adaptability, and determination were still the most powerful weapons in the universe, and that sometimes the best way forward was to go back to basics and remember what made a soldier effective in the first place. The stupid human armor would keep winning because the humans wearing it never forgot that the fight was about more than just the equipment.